Hello, Penguins fans. My audio should be back to, the one that you all are accustomed to. I don't sound like I'm 20 feet away from Mike. I still can't believe I had that awful rookie mistake. Happy Tuesday, August 16th, just about a month away, almost from training camp now. This offseason continuing to fly by. Third week here of August. For today's show, we're going to get into a tweet I saw today from Evolving Wild. Jason of Penguins Twitter put it up there, but he put Evolving Wild's average contract value added per team, and it has the Penguins in a very favorable light. So I'm going to get into that. Also going to get into the top 20 NHL centers right now that NHL Network just ran, and also how that compared to the fans, because Jay Fresh did his own poll. So a couple very notable Penguins are going to be on there. I'll get to that. And then, some other news and notes from around the league. So that's all coming up right after this drop.
You're Locked On Penguins, your daily podcast on the Pittsburgh Penguins, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I am your host, Hunter Hodes. Remember to follow me on Twitter, Hunter Hodes. You can also follow the show's Twitter, LO_Penguins. And of course, thank you all so much for making this your first listen of the day. We're all really in the dog days of summer because I have probably not cut my hair since the playoffs started. For those that watch on YouTube, if I turn my head to the side a little bit, that is how long it is at this point. This is why I don't ever not wear a hat, just because it's too crazy. So hopefully that will change some point before training camp, but still as quiet as ever around the NHL right now. Nothing is happening. I think just, again, teams that have cap space don't want to take on bad contracts, and teams that don't have a lot of cap space, the prices are probably sky high from those teams that, they want to have the salary dumped onto them. So we'll have to see. It's created quite the standstill. I was reading from Danny Shirey of DK Pittsburgh Sports on Friday, and he basically just said, people around the league have never seen this sort of like a standstill right now. Yeah, you got the World Juniors going on, but it's not all the favorites are winning. The USA just crushed everyone in their group. Canada crushed everyone in their group. They're probably both going to meet in the gold medal match, and I'm sure that's going to be quite the sight when those two teams likely clash. But to start off today's show again, so Jason of Penguins Twitter, J_A155, he posted this data from Evolving Wild. The data is from Cap Friendly, but Evolving Wild, they use their model, and it's for average contract value added per team. So it looks at, their projections versus what the Penguins signed the players to. So for example, the Penguins, they were Evolving Wild Twins were projecting Letang to get over $9 million per year. Penguins signed him for 6.1. That's a minus $3.83 million difference. That is a very good thing, at least according to the model. Of all of the teams in the NHL, the Penguins added an average contract value $750K per contract. The only team that was better than them with the average contract value added per team for the projected cap hit versus the actual cap hit, but Toronto Maple Leafs at 1.25 million, and actually 1.25, and the only 1.25, 1,250. Geez, not million. I'm just way out of it today. And the only reason it's there for Toronto is because they projected Mark Giordano to get like $5 million. He took like almost league minimum. So that's I think going to skew it a little bit when it comes to that. But you look at the contracts the Penguins have signed this offseason. Again, for Letang, $9.93 million was Evolving Wild's, the Twins' projected cap hit. Yes, definitely a bit weak. I'm definitely a bit weak, definitely a bit strong, I will say that, but very good value the Penguins got there. Even for Brian Rust, they projected Rust to get almost $8 million per season. He ended up getting 5.13 minus $0.287 million difference. Amazing value. even for Danton Heinen, they projected him to get close to $2 million, 0.72 million difference there. Rickard Rakell, they actually projected him to get $5.62 million per year. Penguins got him for $5 million, so it makes me feel like I think a little bit better, even though I'm still not fully sold on that contract. It's interesting. The Evolving Wild Twins, they projected Kapanen to get $3.67 million on a 2-year deal. Penguins obviously signed him to 3.2, but I would love to talk to the Twins and see, what their model led or why their model was so bullish on Kapanen just because he wasn't good last year. I mean, there's definitely, I think, a big difference between, their model and, the eye test, at least just because Kapanen was not scoring last season. I mean, should not be worth 3.2 million, let alone 3.67 million that the Twins were saying that he's worth. Dustin Tokarski, they thought he was worth 1.14 million. The Penguins got him for $780K, very good value. Casey DeSmith, they thought he was worth close to 2 million. Penguins got him for 1.8. P.O. Joseph, they thought he was worth close to $1 million. They got him for $830K. Josh Archibald, and I guess that's kind of whatever, I think, at this point. For Malkin, this was the one that kind of threw me off. They only projected him to get $5.73 million, and that's because I think they take injuries, into that equation a lot. They were kind of the belief that the Penguins should not retain Evgeni Malkin just because of how their model was evaluating him. Obviously, I disagree with that, but the fact that they were able to get him for, again, not too much more than what they were projecting, that's still really good value. Jan Ruta, they projected him to get $2.41 million. Penguins gave him $2.75. At the end of the day, I'm not really super upset about that. And, I think there's been some better moves out there for the bottom six, like, not signing Kapanen and maybe making another trade and fitting Niederreiter, who only got $4 million per year from the Nashville Predators. I mean, that would have been a beautiful, second line option, third line options, something like that. But, the Penguins decided to go for Kapanen, which was, a little bit annoying. But, I think this was some really tidy work from Ron Hextall, looking at all the players that they added. And this is just for free agency, not just trade, bringing back Letang at, almost a $4 million difference from Evolving Wild, Brian Rust, almost a $3 million difference, Danton Heinen on a massive steal, Rickard Rakell, still a little bit, kind of concerned about the term in AAV, but, he can definitely, I think, surprise me this season. Evgeni Malkin getting him at $6 million, Jan Ruta, I think that's a good deal. Casey DeSmith, POJ, Dustin Tokarski, most of these contracts are wins. The ones, again, Archibald one I don't really like. He shouldn't be getting $900K, and I especially don't like the Kapanen contract. And, this is still, about a month away until camp. I would still expect another move or two to be made because, again, I do not think this team is going to go into training camp with 9 defensemen. And heck, you especially cannot go into the regular season, which starts in right around this time in October. So just in a couple months now with 9 defensemen, that's malpractice. You have a 23-man roster for a reason. I mean, what are you going to do? 12 forwards, 92 goaltenders. So if a forward gets hurt, and I shouldn't say if, when a forward gets hurt, because the Penguins have awful injury luck, you're kind of going to be up against the cap there. And, I think you can run into problems that way. So what they should do, or what I hope they will do 13 forwards, 8 defensemen, and 2 goaltenders, and voila. So, I still think there's another mover to be made here, but I agree with Jason that I think a solid B to B plus for the offseason so far from Hextall. He's definitely had a lot more W's than L's. Again, I already touched on the L's this offseason, the Kapanen contract, the Archibald thing. Heck, even signing, Drake Caggiula to the deal he got, which is a 1 year, two-way contract. He'll have a shot at making the NHL roster, and he's had pretty decent underlines throughout his career. So I've been pretty happy with what he's done. You look at the trades, bringing in Jeff Petry for Mike Matheson, someone who can play top 4 minutes. And I'll talk about this other thing about Petry later on in the show that he can do if Letang gets hurt. And then Ty Smith has the potential to be one heck of a player. If they get his development right, I think working with Tar Reardon is going to pay huge dividends for Ty. So yeah, I think most of you guys should be happy with the work that Hextall did. I think he definitely proved some people wrong. I'll admit it. I'll eat a little bit of crow. I didn't think he was going to get the job done on some of these deals, but for the most part, I think it's been a job well done with about a month to go till camp. We'll have to see if he has anything else up his sleeve. I would have to think he will, but looking at Evolving Wild's, projections there, and the contract value added per team and how the Penguins were second on that list. I think, that's some good stuff. I will say that. Now, coming up in the second segment, we're going to get into the top 20 NHL centers list and why I think, they got most of it right. I should say, talk about the Penguins that are on there. If you haven't tried Built Bar Puffs yet, you are depriving yourself of one of life's greatest joys. And guess what? There's a new flavor. Ready? It's delicious, indulgent cookie dough covered in chocolate. That's right. Built has done it again. Let me introduce you to your new favorite cookie dough chunk puffs. Have a light and chewy texture, real cookie dough chunks, and of course, they're covered in 100% real chocolate. All of the joys of eating cookie dough without the hassle of making it, plus it's healthy for you. Cookie dough chunk puffs are only 160 calories, and they have a whopping 15 grams of protein in them. You can run to Built.com to snag a box for you and the family. It will be the perfect treat, or you can find a really good hiding place and just hoard them for yourself. You're going to love the new cookie dough chunk puff, whether you need a snack for your workout, a late night treat, or just need to grab a quick bite. Built is the perfect protein bar, and they taste better than a candy bar. Ditch the calories, fat, and sugar. Grab yourself a Built bar. You can go to Built.com, use promo code LOCKEDON15, and get 15% off your order. That's promo code LOCKEDON for 15% off at Built.com. All right, I'm back in this episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I am your host, Hunter Hodes. Remember to follow me on Twitter at Hunter Hodes. You can also follow the show's Twitter at LO_Penguins. So, Jay Fresh Hockey, well, if you're not following him on Twitter, you're doing yourself a disservice. So, he posted the fans rating of his top 20 centers that he ran for his poll versus the NHL Network's top 20 centers that they just ran. So, in both polls, Sidney Crosby was the first Penguin to be listed. He came in at number 5 behind Connor McDavid, Austin Matthews, Nathan McKinnon, and Leon Draisaitl. I think those are really fair. McDavid, obviously a monster. McKinnon, Matthews, Draisaitl, they put up more points at this point than Sid. So I don't really have too much of a problem with that. Sid is still, I think, a top 5 player in the league right now. After him, you have Sasha Barkov. This is on the NHL Network's top 20 list, by the way. Steven Stamkos at 7, Patrice Bergeron at 8. I don't think Stamkos should be number 7. I would probably bump him down a little bit. Sebastian Aho, Mika Zibanejad, Braden Point, JT Miller, Elias Lindholm, Nazem Kadri, Ryan O'Reilly, Jack Eichel, Jack Hughes. Evgeni Malkin came in at 18, Elias Pettersson, and then Robert Thomas. As for Gino, I would put him right now over Jack Hughes. I think Hughes still has a little bit more to prove. I would put Gino over Jack Eichel. I think he's better than Ryan O'Reilly at this point. I think 15 is a pretty good spot for him. Kadri just had a really good year. Lindholm just had an amazing year. JT Miller, Braden Point, Mika Zibanejad. Actually, I maybe put Gino over Zibanejad. I don't know if that's being too biased. So, kind of around that 14 to 15 range for NHL Network's list. But honestly, no, I don't really have too much of a problem with these. I know there are probably people out there that think that Sid is not a top 5 center anymore. They're wrong. Just know that he has great defensive metrics. Still is averaging a point per game, even though he's 35 years old at this point. And if he was, didn't miss, I think, a lot of COVID time this year, he probably, gets close to 100 points, to be honest with you guys. So, I'm pretty okay with this list. I think if you were thinking about moving Sid up, maybe you put him over Draisaitl, but, McDavid, I think he's the undisputed best player in the world right now. Matthews just scored over 50 again. McKinnon, it's almost like a 1A, 1B, 1C, 1D kind of thing. At least for me, that's how I see it. If Sid were really snubbed, I would be pretty upset about it, but I really can't find too much to be mad about for that. But then you go to Jay Fresh's list: McDavid, Matthews, McKinnon, Draisaitl, Crosby. Again, I think that's pretty freaking solid. Barkov at 6, Braden Point 7, Patrice Bergeron at 8, Sebastian Aho 9, Jack Eichel 10, Jack Hughes 11, Mika Zibanejad 12, Lindholm 13, Kopitar 14. Pettersson at 15, Matthew Barzal 16, Malkin at 17, Scheifele 18, Ryan O'Reilly 19, Dylan Larkin 20. So Malkin, I do think is, even though he's right around the same, point on that on the NHL Network's list, I think he's a little snubbed when you look at the fans for Jay Fresh's poll. I think Malkin at this point is a better player than Barzal. I would put him at least at 16. I think I would probably put him over Elias Pettersson, Andrzej Kopitar, and Jack Eichel. I would put him at least, and Jack Hughes, I would put him probably at least at number 12 on this list. I think, again, McDavid, Matthews, the top 5, they're better than him at this point. Barkov, Braden Point, Bergeron, as much as it pains me to say, he just had arguably the best season of his career last year. Then, Eichel, not Eichel, and then Aho, really good as well. I think, somewhere in that top 15, Gino belongs because, he was still a point per game player last year. 42 points in 41 games. He was on pace for 40 goals and 84 points last year if he had played a full NHL season. I think, again, he's going to try to come back this year and really shut up a lot of people that think that or that thought that they should not have signed him during free agency. Again, there's just, I'm not going to rehash it. I just know there were a whole lot of people out there that just wanted them to go sign Vince Trocheck for whatever reason. And he's just not even close to the same player that Gino was. But, I'm glad that he's still getting, that kind of respect that, he basically is, at least a top 15 center in this league, even though he's, not as dominant as he used to be, but still some of those players on the fan list, Barzal, I would easily put Malkin over him. I would put him over Kopitar, even though I think Kopitar is still a really great player. Pettersson, I would put him over Jack Hughes and Jack Eichel. So I would probably have him right around the number 12 spot. Maybe he's a Benajad too. So maybe, the 11 spot, just borderline top 10, I would say, in that fan vote. And I do think you're going to see dominant seasons from Malkin and Crosby this year. And, I don't think NHL Network has done the top 20 defensemen yet. But when that happens, I will be the first to talk about that. And I'm sure Jay Fresh is going to run a similar fan vote for that and just, see how that compares. So that wraps up the second segment of the show. Coming up in the final segment, I'm going to get into something that, I kind of hadn't really thought about when it came to Jeff Petry and his acquisition for the Penguins and how he could potentially, bring more value than I guess I thought he would, especially if there are some stupid injuries that could happen this year. So that's all coming up right after this commercial break. All right, I'm back in this episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I'm your host, Hunter Hodes. Remember to follow me on Twitter at Hunter Hodes. You can also follow the show's Twitter at @LO_Penguins. So I was talking with my buddy about this today, and just basically just BSing about the Matheson Petry trade, and I just kept saying to him, I just don't understand why people were complaining about the Matheson Petry trade, just because, I know Matheson had one heck of a year for the Penguins, breakout year, I should say, but, whenever he was elevated up to top competition, his numbers took a nosedive, and that's just because he's not a top pairing defenseman in this league. And, at times he's not really a top 4 defenseman. I think in the right role, which he's in with the Penguins, you can get a lot of value with him. And you saw that when he had double-digit goals for the first time in his career this year and just looked like a completely different player in his own zone. Obviously credit to Todd Reirden for that great work, but still, this is, he's probably not going to repeat that production on a really bad Montreal team. And again, I was discussing with my friend that, Petry, he is a better player. I think the defense right now is better than last year's. And, I also will say this, God forbid Kris Letang gets hurt. He's been really healthy for the last 5 years now. Honestly, ever since the herniated disc, I saw a stat somewhere. He's played in 95, 96% of the Penguins games. There are people that will try to tell you that Letang is made of glass. He is not. Just don't even take those people seriously. They just don't know what they're talking about when it comes to the sport. They should go through Letang's actual game log ever since that 2017 season and look at how durable he's been since then. He's probably missed, I don't even think he's missed like 10 games in a season since that time. I know it hasn't been 15 to 20. That's for sure. He's been on the ice for almost every game. But, God forbid if he does get hurt this year, I'm actually really comfortable with someone like Petry stepping up into that top pairing role for 5 to 10 games if Letang does have to miss a little bit of time, because before that trade, I don't know about some of yins. I was not. Were you all comfortable with John freaking Marino going up there and playing top pairing minutes? No, because he doesn't have the offensive capability that Petry does. He doesn't have that two-way game to elevate himself beyond that second pair. Petry does. Booming shot. Great first pass in the offensive zone. Great at moving the puck up the ice. Great in his own zone and defending his net. All those things can be, you can, how was I going to say? All those things that he's done well over the years in Montreal when he was on the top pairing most of the time can be translated over to the Penguins. He will be paired with a reliable partner in Brian Dumoulin, who, when healthy, is very steady and good. You just have to hope that the Penguins are going to get that version of Brian Dumoulin this year. If they get the version of him that's kind of washed like he was last year, and his skating was not good and all this other stuff, then I think Petry could be up a little bit of a creek. But that said, I still think for the most part, Petry has what it takes to play on the top pairing. If need be, God forbid Kris Letang does get hurt. I just wanted to bring that up because, I've been thinking about that for a little bit, and I was like, yeah, I think that's, part of, I guess maybe a small reason the Penguins made that trade, just because, this team has been so banged up over the last couple of seasons, just with man games lost. They've been top 5 both seasons in a row now. And, the Penguins, they've been pretty lucky that Letang has not really been one of those players, whether it's, being out with COVID or just an overall injury. He's been in the lineup most of the nights. It's been, I think, a lot of the other NHL defensemen that have been out. But, I still think, they wanted to, just add another capable, at least a number 2 guy in play, someone who's been a number 1 in Montreal for the last couple of years that can, be like, okay, I'm going to come up to the top pairing if Letang gets hurt, and I'm going to make sure he doesn't miss a beat because, again, they have, similar offensive tendencies, although I will say Letang is much better. I just stuttered there so badly. Though I will say Letang is obviously much better in the offensive zone than Petry is. But still, 5-10 games, if Petry has to come up there, I think that's totally okay, at least for me. I think that will mostly do it on the show. And I think, even for Ty Smith, if he shows a lot of, good development this year, he could be someone that also could be, implemented in the top 4 if Marcus Pettersson has to miss some time, assuming he is on the team and he is not traded either before, during camp, and all this other stuff. So, we'll have to see on that. But again, that'll do it for today's episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I really appreciate all of you listening to this one of another episode for you all on Wednesday. Going to start getting into some of the games of the year for the Penguins to get you all prepped for the next season. It's going to be here before you know it. Only a few more weeks left of this, or 3 days a week episodes before we are back to everyday episodes for other Pittsburgh podcasts. Go please check out Chris Carter of Locked On Steelers. He kicks so much butt over there. He is just an absolutely wonderful human being. And then of course Ethan with Locked On Pirates. Even though the Pirates aren't good, he does a good job bringing out content on an everyday basis during the season. So I just wanted to shout them out. When you listen to at least one Pittsburgh podcast, I think you got to listen to all of them on this network. So again, thank you all so much for listening. I really appreciate it. And I'll be back with another show on Wednesday.